Thank you for that great intro. As said, my name is Klint Walker, and I am a cybersecurity advisor from the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. So I'm here today to talk to you about cybersecurity. And first off, I want to say that I am not an actor, but they play me on TV. They play people like me on TV with varying levels of success. We've seen everything from the movies Hackers all the way down to all these TV shows which display cyber and cyber attacks in nice, easy to digest chunks, an hour to half an hour, and it always solves in the end. But that's not the way that it is in real life, unfortunately. And when we look at things, we want to give you the reality of what a cyber attack might look like or some of the scenarios that you might see as you navigate through daytime television. So the fantasy is that hackers are the primary reason for data loss and theft, or that hackers only target large companies and the government, that their motives are usually involving vast amounts of money or state secrets. Hackers always have the computer right in front of them and their fingers are on the keyboard attacking you at the time that the attack happens. We see all this fancy, fighting a hacker happening in real time with both groups at their terminal trying to outduel the other one. A great CSI moment there where there was actually two people on one keyboard trying to hack back to the person that was hacking them, trying to keep the bad things from happening. These are all the things that we see, and they make great TV, they make great movies. But when you really look at it, is it easy to identify when you've been hacked? Do you know what the malware is? Do you know who uses it? Do you know how these things all come together? Hollywood likes to put the fantasy around it, likes to throw you those nice, easy chunks for you to digest where you're looking at things and you're saying, oh, everybody's back to normal after a half an hour, everything is golden. But that's not the way that it works. When you look at the reality, insider threat is still king. 50% of all cyber attacks actually happen because of the insider threat, whether it's a disgruntled employee, whether it's somebody who is doing corporate espionage, or some of the other variants that we have of insider threats. But more likely, it's going to be these new hybrid attacks that we're seeing. And hybrid attacks mean that it's an outside attacker, but they're using inside resources. And sometimes these resources are willing, but most of the time, or 90% of the time, they're unwilling. These are attacks that we like to call phishing attacks, where I send you an email and try and get you to click on it because I put words that you want to hear in there, or I put something you need to do. Vishing, which is a relatively new term, that's sort of the same thing, except for this time I'm going to use my phone and I'm going to call you and I'm going to have you try and do things to your computer. I might say, hey, I'm an IT person with your company, or I'm one of your vendors. Can you please log onto your computer and I need you to type these things in for me. I'm going to actually have you remove files or change security settings on your computer to allow me access, or I'm going to have you visit a website, in trying to see if your computer is really working, but that website actually downloads a backdoor for me to get in. And that all comes down to social engineering, people trying to gain physical access to your site, to gain physical access to your computers so they can install their rootkits or they can install their malware on it in person. All of these things, they don't sound like insider threat, but they really are, because they're using the ignorance of your employees or the goodwill or the good nature of your employees to attack your organization. That's what insider threat really means today. There are still the corporate espionage, there's the spies, and there are the disgruntled employees, but most of it's going to be a hybrid attack where the person is using your employees against you. The next reality is that not all losses are actually due to hackers. When we think about data breaches, most data breaches are actually accidental losses. These are policy or procedure violations. They're using non-sanctioned repositories to do business. It might be, Dropbox or some other cloud-based service. They might be putting files there so they can work on them at home, or they might want other people to give them opinions on them. They might outsource or be, mining for information out on the web in order to get other people's opinions on the work. And it might be company confidential or other, high risk data that you're using in order to do that. It could be lost media, thumb drives, external hard drives, laptops that have critical data on them that people just don't know where they go, or somebody walks off with them or leaves them at a store or in a Starbucks. We see that all the time. The email reply all is probably one of the most common ones, where somebody replies thinking that they're just sending it to one person. They're going to reply with company confidential information or PII or something like that. It sends out to everybody. So now you have all these machines that have that information on it, and you didn't really want it out there. You have conversations outside of work or leaving work papers around and stuff like that. We see a lot of this happening as well. And then, of course, one of my favorites is the maintenance cowboys. People who don't follow your change process, people who want to do things in the organization, just get them done because it's just a quick fix and it always works, except for the one time that it doesn't. And it either puts data outside the network, or it causes a network crash, network outage, or it does something else in order to disable your systems. And of course, we always have the accidents of like cut lines or power outages, people posting things on social media that they shouldn't, people trying to make their resumes look better than they are by putting that current, new project that they're working on that's supposed to be super secret, or actually putting out, a lot of times we see people putting out proprietary code that they've worked on and offering that up as samples for their other expected employers to look at to show how much work they've done. And then, of course, there's always dumpster diving, people throwing things away that they shouldn't be throwing away. All of those nice paper trails that we have of all that work, and then people just throw in the trash, not in the shred bins or not burning it or anything like that. All of that data is now out there. And so let's look at our case study here. We had an interesting case in which the CEO of a larger company announced on his Facebook or his social media that he was going on a much needed 2-week vacation. And of course, a couple of days after he left, everybody in their finance group got a targeted phishing email that said, "Hey ladies, I'm having a great time at my cabin in the woods up here, but you know me, I can't stop thinking about work. Could somebody please send me all the W-2s so I can get started on the tax season while I'm sitting up here? I didn't bring my company laptop with me, so this email is coming from my personal account on my personal computer, but just send me the stuff so I can get working on it." Most of the people in that office knew that that was a phishing email and took no action. But one person, trying to be the hero, trying to be that golden person for the boss, sent all of those W-2s out on that channel. Within days, that organization had all their employees had tax returns filed on their behalf. And those tax returns, didn't go to those employees, they went to somebody else. So that company was fined because of that loss of PII, and they lost the faith of their own employees. And their employees had to go and get all of this protection around them. The company had to pay for all of that, identity protection and things like that. This company almost went bankrupt because one person tried to be a hero and didn't follow policy. The company almost went under, which would have lost everybody at the organization their job. Could your own company withstand that loss? Do you know what you would do or how you would report something like that? Let's look at the next reality. And the reality is that hackers target everyone. There's no longer, I don't have to worry, I'm a small business, or I'm in this particular industry and I don't have to worry about somebody coming after me. I'm a nobody. Who would want me? Well, the thing is that hackers are always looking for the easy target. They're following the current trends or what the public focus is on. Currently, it might be COVID research facilities. That's what the hackers are going after. But it's going to be anybody who has data that they need to use right now, or anybody who has a machine attached to the internet, because they can use those machines to attack other people. It doesn't always have to be about money. It doesn't always have to be about secrets. Sometimes it could just be your CPUs or your computing power that they're after. They might be data mining on your computers, or they might be using your computers or your emails to attack other people. And then there's natural disasters. I mean, the hackers are knowing when your attention is somewhere else. They're waiting for your attention to be away from what they're doing. So if you're having a hurricane or an earthquake or a wildfire, the hackers might start hitting you with nice phishing emails saying, "Hey, are you worried about the wildfires? Click here for more information on that," or "Open this attachment to see what your local area is doing about this." And of course, there's malware embedded in all of that. Do you think most of those Red Cross emails that come out after natural disaster are legitimate? Most of them aren't. And then, of course, mergers and acquisitions. They look for people to not know who their boss is or to not know what the communication chains are supposed to be, and they attack companies when they're most vulnerable. Hackers are going after what they can do to further their cause, whether that be money, whether that be publicity, or whether that be secrets. They're trying to get what they can, and they're getting done with it. So let's look at a case study here in which we have a city, and this city passed a law that made it illegal for people to give handouts to homeless, except in designated sections of the city. Well, a hacktivist group, anonymous actually, waged war on that city. They said this is unconstitutional and we don't like what's going on. We think you need to repeal that law, and unless you do, we're going to take your city down. And not just the city, it was anybody who worked with the cities, or it might be the library, or it might be services that are supposed to be there for the public. So for this particular city, a lot of their services, everything from transportation to their library to their healthcare, their finance departments. Everybody was hit with the denial of service attack. And it was hit for a long time. So you had outages across many of the city's services, and they weren't able to do things with the public, and it made them look bad. But they were down for about 2 weeks. And then they spent a whole lot of time after that, many months, trying to re-engineer the systems to ever keep that from happening again. But that's how fast it can happen. You can say something to a reporter, you can have something pasted on a social media site about your organization, and that makes you the new #1 target. Hacktivists go after people that they want to single out, or organizations, or anybody who does business with an organization, just because they're in the news. Their job is to get publicity out of all this, to make people aware of what their cause is. Are you ready for that? So let's look at the new reality too. Hackers aren't sitting at their keyboard when a hack happens. No, hackers are using the same tools that we use. They're using clouds, they're using botnets, they're using other people's computers. That's why they're so hard to trace, is because they're jumping from computer to computer, using other, compromised computers to attack other machines or to jump around. We have these things that we can do nowadays where we can say, hey, I don't want to accept any traffic from outside the United States. I can actually, lock my systems down for that. Like, hey, I don't do business with Europe. I don't want any European IP addresses, to come and talk to me in my machines. Well, the hackers know this, so they're going to try and attack any company in the United States or any individual in the United States to get access to their computer, because their computer has what? It has a US-based IP address, and that IP address is then accepted by every computer in the United States. So that's what they're going to do, is hack a US-based computer, might be a small company, might be a medium-sized company, and then use those company computers to attack larger companies, and so on and so forth. It's what we call island hopping. It's where you attack a small company to attack the next larger company to attack the next one. You're doing a supply chain link. And that's what the threat actors are doing. And it's really hard to trace where the attack really came from when you have to take 3 or 4 companies' log files, put them all together to find out where the real origination point came from. So let's look at a case study around this. We had an organization, it was a small vendor, and this small vendor was hacked by a threat acting group. This threat acting group didn't want anything to do really with the small vendor. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of money to steal there. Their PII would have gotten maybe 5 or 6 employees. So what they did is they waited for this company, and they attached malware to the invoices for this company that they sent out to legitimate business partners. So these legitimate business partners open this invoice because they're expecting it. This is a way that they do business, and their malware detonates and compromises the computer on the next larger company. And then, of course, that company, their invoices then get attached with malware, and then, wash, rinse, repeat. It keeps happening until that organization, those threat actors, now have their foothold in several different companies, all attaching to the target they really wanted to go after, whether that was a nuclear power plant or a large power company, a financial company, whether it was a hospital. That's what they're doing. Think about all the people that do business with you. Maybe you're a hospital and you have individual doctors' offices that are doing business with you, or you have individual banks or smaller companies, widget suppliers, or you might have managed service providers. All of those are avenues into your organization. How many invoices does your organization get on a day? How do you treat those invoices? Do you just open them? Are you expecting them? Is there any additional security measures you take around all of that? How do you trust the data from your partners? That's a big question that we ask ourselves these days. Let's look at our next reality too. The reality that steady state operations can be hard to achieve. This is very interesting. This is probably the hardest thing for most organizations to get their head around. I go into a lot of organizations to do incident response, and they think that once we stop the hacker, or once that the malware is taken care of, everything goes back to, and I'm going to use quotes here, normal. But they don't know what normal looks like. They don't know how to validate that normal is happening in their environment. They don't know what operations should look like. Should that computer be talking to this other computer? Should that system be sending data to this system? They only kind of have things set up and they can guess what normal looks like. So they don't know if the attack is really over or not, or if there's some residual effect left. Has they dropped mines inside the network? Are they looking around? Is there somebody still in there? And to be honest, cleanup usually takes months after the cyber attack just to get you back to where you were, not to mention any new improvements you want to make to the network. Think how long a normal IT project takes, and then say, hey, we want to do this quickly because it's going to increase our cyber capabilities. Well, it doesn't happen overnight. It can be months after the attack before you're back to what you consider safe. Restoring from backups may be easier than paying ransoms too. Most people think, oh, paying the ransom is going to be the fastest way for me to get back up and running. But very often it's not. And I'll get into more of that here in just a moment. But how do you recover from data loss or theft? It's not like the car stereo getting stolen, or when the police find the bad guy, they can take the car stereo back and then give it back to you, and you now have your stereo back. This is the digital world. Things can be copied, things can be put all over the place. Once you lose data, you have to assume that it's lost forever. You still have a copy of it, sure, but so does everybody else out there. If that was intellectual property, or if that was something that was company confidential, your adversary has it. They might be selling it off to all your competitors. Everybody might have access to that, And then how do you have the impacts to staff and customers? Think about all the people that work for you. If they have to have identity protection for the rest of their life now because you didn't do your due diligence and security, or your customers, if you have to pay for all of your customers to have that, how are you really going to make money? You notice the little picture at the bottom is you've got the bang and then you have before and after. We like to use this, in our day-to-day talking about cyber, is you can either prepare for something before it happens, or you can try to do things after it happens. We'd really rather work before the bang than after the bang. Try and get safeguard your things before anything happens, but be ready for it so that when it does happen, you know exactly what to do. But let's look at a case study. This organization has been hit with ransomware. Due to circumstances, it decides that it wants to pay ransomware. Now, being from the federal government, I always say never pay the ransom, but sometimes it's a business decision. That's the only option that you have. So they decide to go ahead and pay the ransom. And this is what happens. They get an encryption key, or a decryption key in this particular sense. And what they do is they then unencrypt all their data. So let's take a pause for a moment here and let's talk about that. Let's assume that you go to Google Translate and you take a sentence, anything that you want to think about, you put it in Google Translate and you translate it to, let's say, Russian. And then you want to take that exact same sentence in Russian and you want to translate it back to English. Does it look like it did exactly when you put it in? No. The sentence is going to be probably nowhere close. It might have some of the same concepts, but it's not going to be the exact sentence that you put in there. That's exactly what encryption looks like. When you encrypt something and then unencrypt it, it doesn't always come back out the way that it's supposed to, especially if you're talking database or systems or applications. A lot of those pointers might be broken. A lot of systems need to be remapped to each other. You need to normalize the data. And that's the big thing is data integrity at this point. You can't be 100% certain. We're talking about databases that might be gigabytes of data large. How are you sure that every single bit and byte in that database is what it was before you put it into encryption? The confidence of that integrity is now eroded. How do you trust the system from that day forward? Think about this if this is a critical operation system, say even an inventory or an ordering system or something like that, your health medical records. Are you sure that everything came back the way that it was supposed to? That's what most companies can't answer. That is the real cause for alarm, that even after you unencrypt something, putting everything back together, putting the system back as a whole can take months of effort. And even then, you're not 100% certain that everything is back the way that it's supposed to be, especially if you've never baselined that data in the first place. So looking at our next reality, identifying an attack is not easy. I know in the movies we see the cyber attack is usually punctuated by flashing monitor, computers going haywire, the bad guy actually doing things right in front of our protagonist. They're running around trying to figure out where they got in, what's going on, what's happening. Everything's happening right there for the camera to catch. Well, that's not the way a real cyber attack looks. Indicators of compromise can be hard to detect. Sometimes they go undetected for very long periods of time. I think the FBI said recently that the average cyber attack, the threat actor, if they're still in the network, has been in the network for over a year before they're detected. Think about that. Think about the threat actor being in your network for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days before you notice that they're in there or before they do something that trips your alarms. If you don't have a baseline of expected activity, how do you know when something's going on? They're not making monitors go haywire most of the time. They're not actively throwing out large amounts of data. It's the days of the smash and grab are gone, where we used to say you could bust the window, grab as many watches in the window, and then run off. That's not what threat actors do anymore. They want to get in your networks. They want to live there. They want to be an advanced persistent threat. They want to live in your network and become part of your new normal. They want to send data out slow and slow. They want to send small bits of data out. They want to put it in with regular traffic so that you don't detect what they're sending out there. And a lot of times for most organizations, we go and they say, oh, we've got all these great security tools. Well, they have the tools, but they don't have anybody running them. The tools have not been tailored to their environment. They're running out of the box. So you'll notice the nice little graphic there, the out of the box solution. When we go into an organization, most of the time, that's what we see. They have an out of the box solution running, and it's only looking for what it would look for in an average company, not their specific organization. When I worked for a certain government agency, one of the things they loved to do was they loved to give me money for tools. They kept saying, here's a tool to do this, here's a tool to do that. It might be a SIM solution one day, or it might be investigative tools the next day. And I kept coming back to them. I kept saying, okay, this is great. I love the tools, but I need people to run these. I need content managers. I need developers. I need people who can actually make use of the data I'm getting out of these. I need people who can go around and actually investigate all the information this thing is giving me. And they said, oh, that's great. Here's another tool. They kept handing me tools, but I never had bodies. If you have tools, but you don't have anybody running them, you're not really doing yourself a whole lot of favors. A tool is a great thing, but only if it's set up in the right way and has the right eyes watching it. It's not going to do the work for you. And last, most organizations lack bidirectional communications. And this next case study I'm going to talk about, I'm going to kind of illustrate that a little bit. So let's go into this case study. In this particular organization, you have a user, and this user, we'll call him user one, calls up the help desk. And they say, hey, my mouse has started running around on my computer all by itself. And so the help desk looks at him and says, you know, that's not supposed to be happening. My job at the help desk is to get you back up and operational. So they say, let's reboot your computer and see if you get your mouse back. And of course, rebooting the computer, the user then has control of the mouse back. A second user also has this problem, calls up the help desk and says, hey, my mouse is moving around on its own on my computer. Once again, the second help desk technician says, hey, you know what worked on the first one is when we rebooted the computer. Let's do that again. So the help desk has been successful. Both users are able to go back to doing their job. But have they really been successful? Have they really found out what was going on? Have they stopped anything? And the answer to that was no. Ransomware hit this company. That was the actual ransomware author looking around the network trying to find where the best place to detonate his ransomware was going to be. So this ransomware hits this organization. So they look and say, let's restore from backup. We don't want to pay this ransomware. So they look at their backups and they say, hey, our backups were from last night at midnight. The ransomware hit us at 4 o'clock. And then they start looking and say, you know what? We're going to lose all of today's data. And then when they start really looking at it, they say, we can't lose today's data. Today is the day that everybody pays their bill. Today is the day that everybody transfers inventory. Today is the day that everything happens in our main office. If we don't have that data, which has now been encrypted, and we're only recovering from backup, that data is no longer useful to us because we don't have paper copies, we don't have manual processes to do things, we have nothing to check and validate or to bring that data up to speed. And this is where most organizations fail, is they think about recovery time objectives. So how fast does it take to recover from backup? But they're not thinking about their recovery point objective. At what point is the data no longer good enough for them to back up or to restore from backup? That's a question for you. If your data is needed in real time and your data is happening all the time, current inventories or orders coming in, inventory going out, how often should you be backing up? So if you are hit with ransomware, you're not going to lose more than a couple minutes, a couple hours, a couple days worth of data, depending on what your operations is. So the next problem here came in is that their log files only go back for 30 days. So by the time they were around to investigate on what they wanted to do about this, they started looking, we need to find patient zero. We need to find out how the bad guy got in. We need to figure out that if we restore from backup or whatever we do, are we just going to get hit with ransomware again because the bad guy is still in our network? But their log files only go back 30 days. And as they looked through the log files, they couldn't find any indication that the threat actor, how they got in. So they had to assume he'd been in there for a much longer period of time. But with only 30 days of log files, they couldn't go back any farther. They couldn't pinpoint when it happened. So they were now lost and had to wait for something else to happen before they could track what was going on. They might never find patient zero. And then the last thing they came across is, so at this point, and you'll have noticed that this is very similar to the last case study, is they needed to pay the ransom. But at this point, they realized they didn't know how to buy a Bitcoin. They'd never bought one before. Nobody on their staff had ever bought one. And that's what this threat actor wanted in payment. So how do you go to your financial office and say, I need $10,000, $20,000, $200,000 to buy Bitcoin? Do you have a process for how to do that? Do you have a way to track it? How do they know that you're going to actually use the money for that? You know, and then how are you guaranteed that you're actually going to get your files back? These are all the things that you need to think about before something happens, because this is what we're looking at. This is a nice case study to kind of show you all the things that can fall into place with just a very simple attack. This is how everything comes together. This is the world that we live in now. This is a world where everything is interconnected, where we have industrial control systems, we have information technology systems, we have building automation, we have cars, we have smartphones, we have watches, we have refrigerators, and they're all on the network. How are we protecting ourselves against all these devices to know how a bad guy or a threat actor is getting into our network? How would we notice when something's going wrong? Are we listening to our users when they say something's not right? Or do we only say if the computer's not telling me something's wrong with our logs or our security tools aren't telling me something's wrong, then everything must be okay? You have to have that bi-directional communication where if you're listening to your users because they're the ones who notice when something's not quite right, you have to find a way to investigate and figure out if this is really something wrong with the system or is there some bad guy running around your networks. That's what we're looking for today. And this is the part where I'm going to pause, take a deep breath. I'm going to say, my name is Klint Walker. I'm with the federal government, and I'm here to help. Hopefully that got a little bit of a chuckle out of you, but it is the truth. We are the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Our mission is to protect the national critical infrastructure. We are here to protect the federal networks. We are here to protect infrastructure security, so all of those 16 sectors of infrastructure, and we're here for emergency communications. So we have a wide variety of things that we do, but today we're really going to focus down on our mission is strengthening the resiliency of America. We are here to make sure that people can recover, that they can weather the storm, and that they know what to do pre-bang and post-bang in order to make their operations work. It's no longer a matter of if you're going to be attacked. It's no longer a matter of when you're going to be attacked. It's a matter of how hard are you going to be hit? What is your capability to resist it and keep operations moving? Because if your organization goes down, you're impacting everybody in your supply chain and everybody who depends on you as well. So it can have a long-lasting impact no matter who gets hit. I myself am a cybersecurity advisor. Just as my title states, that is what I do. I'm here to give you advice. I'm more than just a pretty face, or not so pretty face as it might be. I am here to actually assist you in building your own cybersecurity program. I'm here to give you advice on what you're doing, get you partnered up with other organizations, and we are deployed across the United States. We are set up into 10 different regions throughout the United States following the FEMA regional model. We are down here, or at least I am down here in Region 4. As you can see, we cover 8 states down here in Region 4. And we've deployed personnel to all of these resources. We have people all over the United States ready to assist you with whatever you're trying to do, whatever you need to have done, or any advice that you might need to have while you're doing it. Because we are here to serve the 16 sectors of critical infrastructure and anybody who is part of their supply chain. What that really translates to is we are here to help state and local governments. We are here to help private industry and anybody who is doing business within the United States, because you are all interlinked. You are all part of the supply chain for everything that we do. We are here to help you identify activity on your networks and collaborate with partners in order to make your cybersecurity program a benefit to everybody. And that's not just lip service. We offer a wide variety of cybersecurity services for you to use. And before you get too excited, let me tell you that all of these services come at no cost to you. Taxpayer dollars have already paid for all of these services. You are free to use as many or as few of these services as you want. We prefer to work on the left side of the screen over here instead of incident response. Like I said, we want to be left of bang instead of right of bang. But let's start with the Cybersecurity Advisor and the Protective Security Advisor program in the bottom right corner there. We are both here to assist you. I've already talked a little bit about what we as cybersecurity advisors do, but know that there are also protective security advisors. There's actually more of them than there are of us cybersecurity advisors. These are physical security specialists. They are here for guards, gates, guns. They do all the things about physical protection, everything from active shooter workshops to being able to do on-site assessments of your physical perimeter, your badge access system, where your doors are, entry access points, that sort of thing. And they're really good at it. I do highly suggest that you get in contact with your local protective security advisor to go over your physical security needs and responsibilities. But once again, let's look over at the left side here, preparedness activities. This is where we really want to play. We have an information and threat indicator sharing program for you to use. You can sign up in order to get threat bulletins directly from the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, or from DHS, or from the FBI. We're all here to give you those bulletins. We're all here to share our knowledge with you. We do cybersecurity training and awareness. You can invite the cybersecurity advisors and protected security advisors into your organization in order to train you. We can give training on just about any topic around cybersecurity or physical security. We can hold cyber exercises with you. We can run through your own cybersecurity program, your incident response program, or we can partner you up with people in your region, in your sector, or in your industry in order to hold exercises with them. Do you want to see how you exercise with your local IT providers, with your local, power companies? Do you want to, do it with the local FBI teams? We can help set all of that up for you. If you do nothing else that I talk about today, please at least hold an internal cyber exercise for your own program, or invite your partners in your supply chain to exercise with you. I always like to say that you wouldn't send a football team out to play football if they'd never practiced together, unless you're playing for the Pro Bowl, I suppose. But you wouldn't send firefighters out to fight a fire if they'd never seen a fire before. So why would you send cyber people out to try and handle incident response for you if you've never practiced together, if they don't understand the communication lines or the things that are involved? Please, by all means, do a cyber exercise for your organization. But moving on from that, I want to talk about the range of assessments that we do for your organization. We are here to assist you with both strategic and technical or tactical level assessments for your organization. Once again, there's no charge for anything that we do here. We'd like to start with the Cyber Resilience Review for your organization, which is an 8-hour or full-day assessment for your organization in which we sit down and go over the 10 domains of cybersecurity and how it impacts your organization, what you're doing on a policy, processes, and procedure level for your organization, how that spider web attaches together. How can you have good change management or good configuration management if you don't have good asset management? How can you do good incident response if you don't have good strategic awareness of your organization? We show you how everything fits together, and then we give you a scorecard of how resilient your organization is now, where you would like to be in 1 year, 3 years, and 5 years out. We help you with those building blocks to make a better program for your organization. And then we move you down into external dependency management assessments. This is an assessment of how you deal with other people. How well do you play in your sandbox? How do you enter into contracts? How do you put contracts out to bid? How do you build security language in those contracts? How do you monitor organizations against that security language? How do you then hold people's feet to the fire to make sure that they're doing the things that they said that they're doing? How do you work with your infrastructure providers or people that you don't have contracts with, people that still have an impact your cybersecurity program, but you have no official authority over? Power companies, telco companies, water companies. And then government services. How are you utilizing DHS, CISA, FBI, Secret Service, your local law enforcement, local emergency management? How do you bring all those players in and work on your cybersecurity program? What role do we play in assisting you in a time of crisis? That is my favorite assessment that we perform. More times than not, most organizations that bring us in, that is their light bulb moment where they realize how little control they have over their own cybersecurity program because they depend on all their suppliers and vendors for everything that they do, and that an impact to their suppliers or vendors will also impact them. The last of the strategic assessments is called the Cyber Infrastructure Survey. This is also a 4-hour or half-day assessment in which we're looking at your recovery time objectives, recovery point objectives, and we're seeing if you have the proper resources in place to meet your own RTOs and RPOs. We start looking at your system and saying, if you were to lose different parts or different stages of your system, could you still perform your primary mission? How resilient is your organization? How could you limp along during a cyber attack so that you never have to declare a disaster? This is a fantastic assessment that you get a dashboard after everything is said and done. And this dashboard has all the questions that we asked you built into the dashboard, so you can keep reassessing yourself over time so that you can help build that strategic guidelines on how you're going to look at your organization from there on out and how you're going to manage your resources. This is a fantastic tool for people, especially those that are just starting with their own cybersecurity programs. So moving on down, we get into what we call our technical or tactical level assessments. So the first one I'm going to talk about is actually the vulnerability scanning or the cyber hygiene. This particular assessment is a external scan of your networks. You give us permission in order to scan your networks, your external facing IPs, and we give you a nice report that says, here's everything that we found. We're going to say, we found 100 devices on your network. Here's those 100 devices. Here's what applications are running, what ports, protocols, and services are open. And here's what operating system is there. And then we're going to do some variations on that and start looking at what vulnerabilities exist. We're going to start showing you how those things tie together. We're going to start doing trending and analysis for you. So we might say, hey, we found 100 devices this first time. The next time we scanned you, we found 105. Here's the 10 new devices that we found on your network. Here's the 5 that disappeared from your last scan. You know, that way you can see if your change management board is working, or if your change controller, maybe somebody's opened up a port that has now made things that were supposed to be invisible to the outside world visible now. This is a fantastic assessment because this is a reoccurring assessment. It doesn't just happen once and then we walk away. These happen on a reoccurring basis. So it might be, you know, weekly, quarterly, monthly. It's completely up to you how often you want them done. The next thing I'm going to talk about is our phishing campaign. Yes, we at CISA can phish you. We can do a 6-week engagement with you in which we'll start with very easy to identify phishing emails, and then we'll progressively get harder until you have found, you know, where your level of comfort is with your organization and your training and awareness. Do people click on links? Do they visit watering holes? Do they open attachments? We'll let you know how many people in your organization do that and at what level of complexity they started doing that. A very good program there. The next thing I'll talk about is the Validated Architecture Design Review. Best acronym in the government, this is the VADER. So the VADER is a simulated pen test of your organization. We take your log files, we're going to take your network diagrams, we're going to do some interviews with your users and partners, and then we're going to say, if we were to attack this system, this is how we would do it. We're going to show you where you have bottlenecks on your network, where you have single points of failure, where you have critical data flowing over non-critical systems. We're going to help you re-engineer or re-architect your organization or your systems to match your security tools. Do you have tools deployed in the right locations? Would they be able to collect logs in the right way? Are you looking for the right things? This is a fantastic assessment for helping you architect or re-engineer or redesign, because most networks continue to get added on to day after day, year after year. And nobody ever stops to go back and say, did we do this the right way? Or has the way that we do business changed and our architecture no longer meets our needs? Really great assessment there. And last but not least, I'm going to talk about the RVA, the Risk and Vulnerability Assessment. This is the Ferrari, I like to say. This is the one that everybody wants because this is a penetration test. This is exactly what most organizations are looking for. We can perform remote pen tests of your organization in which you give us permission on a very strict rules of engagement with your organization. We will not deviate from that rules of engagement, in which we will try and gain access to your network from the outside. We will then show you exactly how we did it, what tools we used, what ports, protocols, or services were open, and we'll help you to figure out a way to fix all those things and then continue operations and help you move on. Really fantastic assessment there. Usually takes about 6 weeks on the remote pen test as well, but it lets you know how you look from the outside world and whether somebody can gain access to your networks. And this is just a sample of all the different services that we offer for you. We have a lot more, and I'd love to talk to you about them. All you have to do is get a hold of myself or one of your other cybersecurity advisors in your region, and we can go over all of this with you in more detail. But I don't want to leave out incident response, because we do also do incident response. We can help you in a time of crisis. Even if you don't need help and you just want to report that something's going on, that helps us at the national level to find out whether there's a greater threat to a community, such as every bank being hit or is every water company being hit, just to let us know that you're seeing something suspicious or that you're having problems with something. You don't have to give us any specifics on what's going on. You don't have to even identify who you are. Just let us know that something's happening so that we can be vigilant at the national level in order to help others out. But one of the other things that we do is also we do malware analysis. You can submit malware to us and we will analyze it and get you a report back to let you know what that malware does, what threat actors are known to use it, and how they use it, whether they're using it as a smokescreen or other malware that might be dropped along with it. Most organizations love to know after they get their malware analyzed so they can figure out the threat actors behind it or potential threat actors behind it, so they can say, was this just something I got caught in the wild, or was I targeted? Because you have a little different response if you caught something in the wild versus if you're being targeted by a threat actor. If you're being targeted, you need to be vigilant from there on out, or if you caught something in the wild, you just need to start securing things up and making sure it doesn't happen again. So we can help you with malware analysis. All you have to do is submit it to us, and we'll work our best to get those reports back to you as quick as possible. So I want to thank you for allowing me to come and talk to you today. My name is Klint Walker, and I am the Region 4 Cybersecurity Advisor, along with Jason Burke and Sean McCloskey. But I can get you in touch with any of the regional CSAs out there, or get you in touch with your protected security advisors as well. Please reach out for us, for we are here to assist you. Like I said, I'm from the federal government, and I'm here to help. Thank you very much.